welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. That's right. We're coming to you live every single day. You heard me sneeze in the intro yesterday, people. It's real, it's raw, and it's right here. And I'm your host, Hannah Ness. Wow. Let's go ahead and ground ourselves in our greatness. Blah, 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 blah. Yesterday, gosh, so many amazing things happened. I don't know, one of my favorite things so far has been reconnecting with people, connecting with different people who maybe knew that I was in this stratosphere, maybe knew that I was doing this work, but didn't hop on board right away, which, you're not wrong. You're not wrong for not hopping on board. This is the thing. This is how you do this type of work. You just keep showing up, you keep figuring it out, you keep moving forward. And I knew early on when I started my podcast that I just didn't want to be one of those people who started and stopped, that I wanted to be the person who did whatever it was going to be. And so to me now, almost a year and a half out of doing this work, I'm starting to find more and more people that this work hits with, that they find value in, and it's so unexpected and so beautiful. And you should know, if you've ever reached out to me, you're part of the way that this keeps going, of the drive to keep pushing and keep producing. And so your lifeblood. But just connecting with people, that was always something that I wanted to do. And from the place that I sat, where I was in a previous life, and I know a lot of times I talk about myself as if I'm two different people, and it does feel that way. Even having a conversation with my husband yesterday, it was like, we can't go back to old Hannah. This is just so much better. So whatever we have to do to stay here, to stay on this vibe, we need to do. And so that's just it. I always imagined this world where I was connecting with beautiful people who have beautiful dreams, or who want to just do amazing things, who want to change the world, who want to, I don't know, right? But more than anything, they just want to decide what they want to do. And I love being a part of that permission pattern, right? Telling people it's okay to have big dreams, to have big goals, to start moving in that direction, to create something, to do something that they never expected, and to just follow that path, and to just take the first step, right? Just do the first thing. You don't have to do all 10, right? Just move in any direction. And so now just that movement for myself has started to cultivate this world that I never dreamt I would be in. Ever. And every day I connect with a new person, and every day I get to talk to a new person, and it's so amazing. Because you do. You put that vibe out there, you stay consistent with that person, and trust me, there are still days when it's just just go back. Just everything would be easier. Just go back. But the moment that you let yourself run, you can't go back to walking. You can't. It's I ran not many marathons, but when I ran one half marathon, I remember just being okay, you can't stop. You can't stop. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't get a drink of water. Just keep going. And I'm certain that this goes against every single marathon training rule and record that's out there. But to me, it was don't stop moving. Don't stop moving forward. It will certainly stop you forever, and you will never be able to get these legs moving. And I remember people like making fun of my split times and all of that, which like there's a long-winded history for why, whatever, people. Running a marathon is not about winning to me. It's about completing. And I did. And even if it looked like I was walking, I never quit moving at whatever pace it was I was going on. I'm pretty sure that the people that I ran the race with got to go get breakfast and come back, and then I was done. And it was still beautiful, regardless. And amazing. And wonderful and shocking. And, you know, that's where I'm at. Like, I just never quit moving forward. Even on days that I wanted to, even on days that I had to go to the bathroom, even on days when I had to stop and get a drink of water, like, we're still moving those legs, keeping them turning. And that one day will be what I'm most proud of. But today, I'm just proud of the being that I am that's attracting the beings that are coming to me now. Like, you don't attract people like that faking it. And I don't know, it amazes me, because I wasn't the kind of person attracting the kind of people I wanted to be surrounded by for a very long time. And I would always question it. Like, how do you make friends? How do you do this? And this is how. You're the person you want to be, not tearing down the people you want to be, right? Like, that's who I was. I was just destructive with most of the words that came out of my mouth, with most of the movements, with most of the energies that I put into this earth. Like, my pure intention was to rip people off pedestals. And that's not who I'm supposed to be. And I only got there by learning the cutthroat nature of what had to be. And unlearning that has been a huge process, but most of it has come from just figuring out who I wanted to be and showing up as that person, pure, intentional, and just focusing on the beauty of people and the world and possibility, period. So that's my great thing. Go ahead and take time for yourself, for your own great thing. It's really important, because it's going to just turn things around for you. It just is. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So 90 days ago, it would have been about July. Well, let's actually look. I'll give you an official date. I'm just penning through this book. Hopefully you can hear that. It's actually a journal. The official start date of this journal, my last journal, was July 26th, 2020. And this journal I had bought months prior because I just liked it and I knew that I would need another one. And on the spine, it had said, go all in. And the date that I had to start this was the last day of my 9 to 5. Now, I don't think that that's the world working in mysterious ways. I know it is, right? And that was the start of this, of like going all in on my dreams, of not giving in. And I couldn't have predicted that if I wanted to. But this journal was really like, it was just signifying that you do this today. Do it. Just start taking steps forward. Just start planning out what you want this to be. Now, what I couldn't have planned was the like major downfall of identity shift and depression. And I think that was okay. We were still moving. We were still navigating, still finding truth, still moving forward together, even though it was in the complete darkness. And for a long time, I was just like, really, have faith? You told me to have faith. You told me to move. You told me that it was going to be okay. You gave me signs, and like, here we are. We're not okay. It's not okay. Right? And that was really most of July and August. And then we kind of start realizing that like that's not even our identity, and that that's really what we were hung up in. And for me, it was like, how do we find new balance? How do we find alignment in this new space? Because it looks a lot different than it did before. It feels so much different. And here you have the ability to run free, run wild, create anything you want to create, go. Right? You can imagine how deafening that is, especially to an Enneagram 7 who like lives for that. It was kind of like, whoa, hold on. We went down a bunch of different paths, especially early on. And I think a lot of that was just me trying to find any way to survive and to make this happen. And that's kind of the thing. You won't know unless you go there. I wouldn't know unless I did this year of podcasting, of trial and error, of starting and stopping a million things, but staying consistent on that path. And so when I was called to take this leap, I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. I knew that it was going to rock me and shape me and change me forever. And that was the scarier part. Because what happens if we just want to go back? And I frequently ask that question. Like, I know I said I didn't just want a desk job where I just kind of like clocked in and sat in a cubicle, but it's not looking so bad right now. Are you sure we don't want that? Like, pitching books, it's really scary. And finding your worth on the very being that you are seems really scary right now. Are you sure? And every step of this journey has been life-giving. And even though it's blind and it's running not knowing, right? I don't know what's going to happen. But it's also this ability to just bet on yourself. And I remember recording that podcast, like go all in and bet on yourself. And I remember having this significant spike in volume, which I'm going to release a video which will show you kind of the timeline of growth that has happened. But I remember the spike, and the spike was people here for the tea. Okay. And I knew that was going to happen. Like, Hannah left her job. There's got to be something bigger going on behind all of this. And she certainly is going to talk about it on her podcast because she talks about everything. Right. And so I had seen significant growth, but it took me 6 months to get 1,000 downloads. And then I had like this big spike. And so it was like, oh my gosh, but I also knew those people were going to fall off, right? I knew that they were just here for the tea moments and had certainly signed on just to see if Hannah's gone crazy or not. And I'm certain that they found that I had, and then left and said, good riddance. If she ever becomes anything, she won't. But I'm here for the train wreck. Maybe I'll check in again. Which is fine. But at that point, we were at, let's see, that was July 1st. We were almost at 3,000 downloads. And the only reason that we weren't still sitting nicely at 2 for a very long time was because of the tea drinkers. And that's okay too, right? For me, it was like, whoa, we used to be feeling pretty good about 11 people listening. And now, we jump up to 15. That's amazing. And it felt super cool because it's people listening, and that's all I've ever wanted. And maybe they'll stick around. They didn't. And so then we would plummet again. I like skyrocket up to almost 3,000. And I'm like, I'm the queen of the world at this point. Like, and I get it. Okay. You're going, oh my gosh, really? 2,000 downloads? Wow. Do a happy dance, you weird, weird person. Like, people have millions of downloads. People do this all over the world, and like they start a podcast and they get 2,000 downloads on their first episode. You're pathetic. You had to podcast every day for a year to get 3,000. And it doesn't matter, right? Like, this isn't the same story that everyone else is writing, and it's intentionally set up that way. Right? I didn't want to write a story that was already written. I want to write a bottom to the top story. I want all of you to be a part of that. I want you to know how hard it is to just walk in faith, blind, not knowing what's going to come next. I want everybody to be able to experience that. I want you to see the lows and trust there have been lows. There have been lows that I wasn't sure I was going to recover from, and I promise you that this podcast has kept me alive most of those low days because it was always a true north. It was always something that I had to show up for, right? So when I left my job to do this blind, to not know where we were going to get, to just walk on that path, I was at about 2,700 downloads, right? And so that would have been July 1st. And that would have been when we started this 90 days with this journal, writing down my goals every day. And today marks the 90th day from that date, from the day I left my job. And we were at 2,700 downloads, just in me going all in, doing everything that I could do in that moment that I could think of, even surviving the lows and trying to figure out how to navigate that, on top of try to figure out how to build a business around this, how to start writing, how to start putting something into the world that people find value in. We've grown, let's see, today, I'm going to look so it's real time. Today we're at 12,000 downloads. So that happened in 90 days. That happened in Go All In. That happened in, and I wish that I could say that it happened in those 90 days. It didn't happen in those 90 days. It happened in the 250 days before that. Because if all of that didn't exist, there would be no place for someone to land. And that's why it's so important. That's why telling this full story of what it looks like to come from zero, right? That's why it's important, right? Because it's not going to look like that for some people. It's not going to be, I'm perfect at this and go. Sometimes you don't have an option. Sometimes you have to just follow your heart and figure it out from there, right? And I want to tell you the story of just following your heart. Just following your soul and seeing what unfolds. And the reason that I'm sharing the numbers is so that you can understand that it doesn't happen overnight. That's what we see a lot of times, right? Like people, and really, I think in the grand scheme of the world, if you had enough money, you could test all of these things. You could guarantee a good product. You could find ways to do that in a much safer, much less out there way than I had to. But I didn't have those things. And so now it's intentional, right? To build. And going all in, by the way, didn't look like going all in and pushing a bunch of crazy money into this. Going all in looked like me using every single free resource that was out there, because I went from making actual money to $0. And that sounds crazy, right? Who leaves not knowing? And I couldn't not do it. Everything was pointing there. Everything was pointing towards go all in and grow. Commit. This is what you want. This is where you want to go. It's not going away. It is not going away. And I couldn't not do it. And I just vowed that I would figure it out. And I'm still figuring it out. But I think, someday we're all going to look back on this moment and go, oh my gosh, how funny. Or I hope we are. How funny. Like, she did an actual podcast celebrating 12,000 downloads. How funny. Right? But like, I want you, wherever you're at in your dream space, I want you to see what's possible, to see what you're capable of, to see that sometimes it's blind and it's wild and it's free, and at the same time it's like chains. It's trying to escape the world that we're told to exist in and create a new one, right? Create one that follows this creativity. Create one that follows me feeling. Create a world where I don't have to be half the person I am to show up. Create a world that accepts this whole person. And create a community that accepts whole people as well. And that's what we're doing. That's where we're at. And we're intentionally building from zero. We're intentionally finding just the right people. Not the people who don't need this, not the people who already have a podcast that's speaking to them, like the people that I'm finding that I talk to every day need this. Need someone to keep waking them up every day, need someone to say that it's okay, that life isn't okay, that like everything's perfectly fine, but nothing is fine. And maybe they need someone to just say, keep going. And that's why these numbers are important to you. I really had no reason to keep going, no reason to do a daily podcast, no reason to think that I should, no reason to leave my job to do this. But I had passion, and I hadn't had that since the last time I got to play a sport competitively. And so I just had to follow that. I had to follow that wavelength. I had to follow that person that I could feel beginning to emerge. And as I'm researching more, as I'm learning more about myself, as I'm continuing to move into this world of becoming who I'm meant to be, I know her. And I know her intention, and I know where she wants to go. And I know how she wants to do it. And I know that there is there's certainly no one in this world that's saying like, good idea, Hannah, you keep going. But I know, I know that there's a need for this. I know because I hear you. I talk to you. I know. I know you. And so we're going to keep going. We are at 12,000 downloads. I remember even doing a podcast celebrating 100 downloads, celebrating 1,000 downloads, which took about 7 months, right? Like, and now just in the last 3 months to see what intention and connection and doing what I'm capable of doing, and only scratching the surface. Like, that's only 90 days, and I'll say probably 60 of them I wasn't really fully me. And I'm still probably only at about 25%. I'm kind of scared to let the rest of her out, but I know, right? I know. And I know that it seems scary. It seems scary to press publish or to write or to apply or to whatever that is for you, right? To take a stand. And I know that there are voices. I know because I heard them all myself. I still hear them in different ways. And so I want this podcast to stay your true north. For you to know that there is a girl in the smallest town in Iowa, not the smallest, there are smaller, in a teeny tiny town in Iowa, who bet on herself, who started moving forward wildly, freely, in the direction of her choosing. And she is light years ahead of where she ever would have been if she didn't just push publish. And even that day, I remember not wanting to, but just doing it. And then continuing to show up. And so if you can just take that teeny tiny step forward, I promise you, the world will unfold. I promise. Just go. And then just go all in. And you'll know when. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.